All right, everybody. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me and if you can see my slide. In fact, I think what I'm going to do real quick, for those of you watching the replay, you're probably going to wonder why I'm doing this. It's because I've actually had some weirdness going on with my mic. For those of you who don't recognize my voice, I'm JJ Conway, and we are going to have a fantastic class tonight. But one of the things that I've noticed is that lately my mic has been not cooperative. So let me just check this out and make sure you guys can hear me. One of the things that I've noticed. Sounds good. Sounds good. So I'm going to get out of that. And if you're listening on Clubhouse, first of all, I want to thank you for being there. I'm still trying to figure out how to generate the audiences. I feel like I should have just gone ahead and and just got me an iPhone when that whole thing first came out so that I wouldn't be behind the power curve now. But you know what? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So we're going to just move forward. All right. Today's class is going to be phenomenal. I'm super, super excited for what we're going to talk about today. It is how I got started in real estate investing. And so it's very near and dear to my heart. And actually, because it's so near and dear to my heart, I actually had a little bit of a difficult time. Putting this together when we first launched this version last year. And so what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and bring up some introductory slides. For those of you who are listening from the meetup groups, you're going to notice that we're switching from Saturdays. We're going to switch to Thursdays, which is our original Building Wealth Together meeting time. So those of you who are old school wealth builders, you remember we started Thursday nights back in 2014 or so, 2013, 2014, whenever it was. And so we're going to go back to that because I feel like I don't feel like people are really getting up Saturday morning. They were when we were in the mall. They would come to the mall. We had a really good group come in, and it was worth my time. It was worth my time, and it was worth the sacrifice for the family. But I just feel like we're not having the impact that we need to have. And it's not just about me making money. Like, I don't mind selling a course to you, but it's not just about making money. It's about all of us growing together. Okay. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about foreclosure consulting. Let me pull up the slide there. Yep, we started. Okay. Let me go ahead and go there. We're going to talk about foreclosure consulting. And so what we're going to cover, first, I am going to talk about a really exciting upcoming event that we have. I'm also going to talk about how these classes, the real estate classes, are a fundraiser. Okay. So I do them for free, but it's not really free. It's free, but it's not free. Okay. It's a fundraiser for Global Youth Initiative. And so for the last 4 years, every October and every April, we've done John Maxwell's Global Youth Initiative. And I'll talk about that in a second. Let me not get off on that trail right now. But we're going to talk about why real estate is important and why I like to teach real estate, because it's one of the very few investment types, real estate and also mutual funds, stock market, that I feel like everybody can do. All right. And so we're going to talk about that. Not everybody can do everything. You know what I mean? Like sometimes there's stuff out there that this person can do, and then there's stuff out there that that person can do, but not everybody can do everything. But in my opinion, everybody can make money from the stock market, and everybody can make money from real estate, depending on which avenue they take it. And we're going to get into more details about that later. Okay. So we're going to talk about our main topic tonight, which is foreclosure consulting. I'm going to give you an overview of this group. For those of you who are new to this teaching, I'm going to give you an overview of what this group does, because many of you are here today, but you haven't been on the Saturday morning classes. And at the end, of course, I'm going to give you an opportunity to dig deeper, like I always do, right? All right. So let's just talk a little bit first about, okay, so they're a little bit out of order. Let's talk a little bit first about what the philosophy is behind the DART real estate investing. Yeah, that slide really should have been later because I was supposed to talk about the fundraiser first. All right, here's the fundraiser. This is our Global Youth Initiative fundraiser. Okay, so Global Youth Initiative is a John Maxwell team initiative that I support every October and April. Of course, last year was a little wonky with COVID. But before COVID hit, we had our largest ever group. We took 30 kids to Cyport in Shreveport, and we did an amazing day of confidence building, understanding your personality, and being really secure in who you are, which helps minimize, it helps reduce bullying, it helps kids become more confident leaders. It's a fantastic program sponsored by the John Maxwell team. One of the great things about Global Youth Initiative is that we do not charge the children to be a part of it. Okay. Well, if I'm not charging the children and I want to take them to awesome experiences, well, guess what? Somebody got to pay for it. So I'm hoping you will help me pay for it. All right. And when I said, okay, how can I put together a benefit for these children? Right. Like, I'm not a singer. I can't just put together a concert or anything like that. But you know what I can do? I can give what I have. And what I have is knowledge on how to build a business, how to invest, and how to manage your money. So that's what we've been doing. These classes are how I have been funding Global Youth Initiative for going on 5 years now. All right. So this is our fundraiser. I'm going to ask that if you screenshot the slides, I'm going to recommend a donation of like $1 a slide. Okay. And I'm going to ask you to support us in that. All right. If you have a question that you want to ask at the end, after I get through each section, if I see something in the comments, I'll perk it up, I'll pull it up and address it. If you want to ask anonymously, I'll deal with those questions at the end, and you can do that at askjjc.com. All right. So let me check the comments real quick. And before we get into that, so that's that. Building Wealth Together is the parent group of this. We have split it out in 2021. We split it out into 2 groups. So we split it into the entrepreneurship, which is Building Wealth Together, entrepreneurship and money mindset. And then the DART real estate investing is what was the real estate investing part of that group. We've made it its own group because it's grown so big and there's so many topics that if we're doing monthly meetings, I don't have enough time to do everything I want to do in the entrepreneurship and everything I want to do in the real estate investing. So we split it out, and it's been pretty successful this year. It's been successful in the after the fact interest. It hasn't been as successful in the Saturday morning meeting. So that's why we're going back to Thursdays. Okay. So that's what Building Wealth Together is. Basically, this group of investors, we are not here to get rich quick. If you're coming into my classes to get rich quick, then you're in the wrong place. Now, I do believe that you will build wealth quickly now. I do believe that. I believe that anybody listening to me can be financially independent in as little as 5 to 7 years. And you might have $800,000 of debt like I did. So, it might take you 12 years before you can retire and not have to go back to work. Okay. Like, some of us are not only hard-headed, but we have a deeper hole to dig. But I don't know anybody who's got a deeper hole to dig out of than I had when I started out 12 years ago. So if I can do it, you can do it. Right. And so, this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is not a press the easy button. It becomes easy. It becomes second nature. Managing money and understanding wealth becomes a part of who you are, and it makes it easy to do these things. But there's a learning curve, and there's effort. And a lot of that effort is actually in relationships. Okay. So, a lot of this effort is really in the relationships that you have to have in order to make all this stuff work. So this is not an easy button kind of thing. I'm not going to sit here with a Porsche and a bunch of dollar bills flying around and tell you you can have a private jet tomorrow, because I hope you have a private jet one day, but you're not going to have it tomorrow with these methods unless you're like already almost there and you just need to buy it. Right. What we are doing in this group, again, the third Thursday meetings are always free. They were the third Saturday. We have moved that to the third Thursday. And for this group, the real estate investing, we have not established the membership yet. So our main group had a membership, and some of you have been members since 2014 when we first started it, right? But we haven't set up that structure yet. We don't have the sponsors and all that yet, but these are the things that you'll get once we establish that. It's kind of hard to establish that during a pandemic, all right? Because like I want to be compensated for my time, but I also understand that people are struggling, right? But these are the things that we give to our members, and you can join our group. And when we do launch in 2022, when we do launch the paid portion of this, you will get the charter membership. You'll be able to give your meeting. You'll be able to talk at the meetings and do open mic and advertise your business. You'll get early access to my new classes. When I need to fill a class, when I've only got 5 people because it's a brand new class and I don't have enough people in there, you'll get free tickets to that class as a paid member, right? So you're going to get a lot of things. But that's coming soon. It's not there yet. So, and that's why we don't have sponsors this time. But one thing we do have, and that is October is coming. And even if it's going to be virtual this year, which it probably is, I still want to do something for these kids. So I'm going to ask you to help me do something for these kids. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the meat of what we're talking about today. We're talking about real estate, and specifically we're going to talk about foreclosures. Okay. And so I'm having a little bit of trouble figuring out where to look, because StreamYard changed something, and it used to be I could look at the camera, but now I feel like if I'm looking at the camera, I'm looking up too high. So if y'all see me shifting around, that's why. I'm not trying to be crazy or anything. I'm just trying to figure out where to look, and my screen is off center. Okay. So anyway, I'm looking at my slide now so I can make sure I read you the slide, right? Okay. So there's millions of ways. Like, I read this book called 1,001 Ways to Profit Off of Real Estate, right? I did read that book one time, and that they were like, 100 different variations of 10 different ways. But still, I like to say there's at least 20 ways that you can profit with real estate investing. Okay. And I've listed them here. If you've been coming to these classes since the beginning of the year, we've covered bird dogging, we've covered wholesaling, we've covered deal making, we've covered creative strategies like lease to own, we've covered tax liens and private lending, we've covered subject to, we've covered a lot of these things, okay? And then you have not only the house, but you have the ancillary services, that you could do, such as being a VA, such as doing the putting ATMs somewhere. There's all kinds of things you can do to profit with real estate. And in this blue box that I have here, these are the ones that generally do not require any debt to go into. Okay. So now land flipping, landlording, leapfrogging, if you have cash reserves, those don't cover any debt. Those don't require any debt either. All right. But most of us who are getting started in real estate investing, let's be honest here, most of us who are getting started in real estate investing, we're getting started in real estate investing because we need more money, or because we have goals and our current income is outpacing our goals. And you come home and you're so exhausted and you feel like, oh my goodness, why am I spending all day long at work? I just want to have something to show for all my hard work. Right. And so that's what real estate, that's who jumps into real estate investing. Like, you are made for more, and it takes more wealth, and it takes more holdings, and it takes more property to not only do what you want to do out of life, but to leave a legacy for your family, and then also make change in your community. It takes resources to do that. And so people who jump in, a lot of times they don't have the cash on hand. So that's why I don't highlight the land investments, the flipping, the landlording, or the leapfrogging, because you can do those things without debt, but it usually doesn't. You can do those things with debt, but it usually takes, in my experience as a financial planner, I know a lot of real estate gurus out there are gonna absolutely disagree with me, but it takes longer to get where you want to go. Okay. And so these ways here, these are ways that that are highlighted in blue. These are ways that you can get started without getting into debt. Okay. And these ones in green, let me make sure I got my slide on. Oops, see, I forgot to make a good thing I checked. These ones here in green are the ones that you can get started in this week without any money. These are all things that you can do to profit in real estate without any money. Now, granted, some of them are going to require some, some talent. If you are not good at decorating, well, you're not going to be able to jump in and offer the ancillary service of home staging without some training or without some stuff. But if you are like I used to be, back when I had a big house and lots of places to store stuff, I used to go shopping, and if I found a good deal, even if I didn't need it, I would buy it and tuck it away for another day when I could use that, or gift it, or use it to decorate the church, or use it to decorate the house, or something like that. I mean, a lot of people are surprised to know that about me, because they know that I'm a very frugal person, and I'm not a flashy, like, I like nice brands, but I don't want to walk out the house being an advertisement for brands, right? Like, I don't need to broadcast my wealth. And so a lot of people are really surprised when they learn how much I love to shop. But when, if you don't already have a stash of nice, pretty things and of extra, extra furniture and stuff like that, okay, it might take you some money. But many people who are already inclined to the different ancillary services, or many people who are already inclined to being deal making, you already have the skill set and probably the stash you need to make that work. Okay. So we're not going to focus on that so much today. Today, we're going to focus on foreclosure investing. But I just wanted you to see that there are all kinds of different ways to make money in real estate. And one of the reasons I teach real estate is because almost anybody can make money. Almost anybody can make money with real estate investing. Okay. And so it's just like the stock market. Maybe you're not going to be a day trader because you don't have the time, the energy, or the strength of heart to watch that market go up and down and up and down and trade here and learn this and do that. And I mean, it can really, to make that kind of trading work can be a full-time job. All right. And so some people don't have that. And look, if you sell one of those products, one of those business opportunities where you're making all this money on your phone from the day trading, and you signed up last week and now you got $2,000 extra in your account, don't you come on my page talking about, ooh, I feel it coming on, I'm going to tone it down. But don't you come on my page right now talking about how you just made that $2,000. You come back and talk to me in 2 years, and then you tell me how much money you made. All right. We just gonna nip that in the bud real quick. Okay. But but if you're wanting to do something with your life, you've got to invest. You have to spend less than you make, and then you have to invest the difference. And there's all kinds of things you can invest in. There are all kinds of things that you can invest in. And the only requirement to become an investment is that whatever you are putting your money into makes money back. Whatever you're putting your time, energy, and resources into gives you something back. That's really the definition of what's an investment, right? So you could invest in stamps, you could invest in cars, you could invest in gold, you could invest in crypto. I don't know, I know it's kind of wonky right now, but we all know that eventually that's where the world is going, right? So we're not gonna downcast it just yet, all right? But maybe you don't have the skill set, the knowledge, the strength, the energy to do any number one of those things. But all of us, everybody who has enough ability to watch this video, whether you're watching it live or watching it later, and all of us that have the ability to watch this video and make a paycheck where we have money coming in, all of us can invest in mutual funds. All of us. You set it up, they pull it out of your pay, boom, it's done. 20 years later, you're financially independent and you're like, oh, wow, I'm glad I did that. Okay. I mean, and it's funny because I'm usually on top of my money, but every so often I tend to forget how much is in that thrift savings plan or how much was in the IRA. It's like whenever I open it up, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm glad, I'm glad I did that. What's that phrase? Do something today that your future self will be thankful for. You got to do something today that your future self will be thankful for. And because the market goes up and down and up and down and up and down, it might be going down today. It might go up tomorrow. It might go down again next week. But one thing we know about the market is over a 10-year trend, it always goes up. So you put that in there, you set it and forget it. Anybody can do that. And anybody can build wealth with real estate investing. Okay. So that's why I love real estate so much. So let me tell you guys a little bit about me. I think I'm trying to see who's on. I'm broadcasting to 5 different channels, and I've got like 2 people over here, 10 people over here, 4 people over there. And I can't really tell who's who, but just in case you don't know who I am, I've been helping people get out of debt since 1998 after Larry Burkett helped me get out of debt and made me promise, because I couldn't afford his class, made me promise that I would help somebody else out. Okay. I've been investing in real estate since 1999. And let me tell you something, in that time period between 1999 and 2007, I made all of these standard real estate investor mistakes. And I call them mistakes because they burned me bad. We lost everything through OPM and reintroduction of debt, even though we did everything that they teach you on the late night TV and at the real estate investor meetings. And we pulled this equity and we pulled this equity and we put it into that property. And we thought we were large and in charge. Like, I think if you added everything up, I think it was almost $2 million of portfolio. I don't know that it was really that much. I'm just trying to go through rough math in my head. I think it was almost $2 million of portfolio and just making bank, right? And then life happens. And does anybody remember what happened in life round about 2008 and 9? Yeah, lost everything. And in the middle of losing everything real estate wise, then come home, marriage is falling apart, having to start over, having to rebuild. So I know something about getting out of debt, and I don't ever want to go back to being there. Okay. So So I have a very unique perspective on debt and investing, and that's why my group, I don't care what other group you want to go to, but my group is about debt avoidance. And we are not trying to take on any new debt. That's what this group is about. So if you want the traditional things that everybody gets rah about, you go find you a different group. But if you want to be able to sleep well at night, and you want to know that your kids are okay, and that you're not going to lose your shirt tomorrow when the market crashes, well, then you are in the right place. And I've got a picture here of my boys. They are the original. Well, started off with this big one in the middle. The little one came along about 5 years ago, but this big one in the middle, my big why originally was I was never going to have to sleep in another Walmart parking lot with him, because I couldn't afford a place to stay, or because I couldn't afford to do this or that, or because the person who said I could stay with them somehow just didn't show up. I couldn't get a hold of them. I couldn't get inside the house, right? Like, that was never going to happen again. That child was never going to have to go walking around from store to store getting free samples because mama didn't have no money to buy food. Never going to happen again. Making six figures as a major in the Air Force at the time before I got promoted. Making six figures, and I still couldn't afford to buy my child food. Y'all, never going back to that place again. And the reason I was in that place is not because I bought real estate, but because I over leveraged it with debt and didn't understand that the market goes up and down. And I got all caught up in the excitement of the up market. And when everything changed, I lost everything in the down market. Okay. And so now I'm called to change communities now. And so I do that through teaching people how to get out of debt, stay out of debt, build wealth so they can leave a legacy. And like I said, almost everybody you talk to, I even had somebody take issue with me earlier. I'm like, you trying to sell me? Yeah, I'm gonna tell you this. All right. This guy's trying to sell me, and he's very, very knowledgeable in what he was doing, but I thought it was hilarious. Like, you're trying to sell me a $25,000 class, but you're gonna take issue with me publicly for my feelings on real estate investing. And I was just like, what part of you of you want my money is not making sense right now, because you want my money, but you are trying to make me look like a fool in front of all your other students. I'm like, not happening. Not happening. You are not getting my money. Because that's how a lot of people started out. They started out and they grind and they hustle, and life is tough for 10 or 15 years. And then finally they start paying off properties and boom, they're good to go. But you know what? I don't need as many properties, because my property's cash flow. All right. Let me get off that soapbox. Okay. So our DART real estate investing, DART real estate investing is about debt avoidance. We are not taking on new debt. I am not trying to teach you how to take on debt. I'm not trying to teach you how to leverage debt. I'm not trying to teach you how to go out and find you a hard money lender. Now, I will teach you those things because I think it's important for your real estate investor education to understand how they work, right? Like I don't want anybody who's come to my classes to walk into a RIA meeting and then look like a fool because you don't know what everybody's talking about. Like, now, see, I'm not trying to do that, okay? But I'm going to be very clear about, here's how a lot of people get in trouble. And almost every investor that tried to take advantage of me, it's because they were over leveraged. They had all these hard money lender debts, and they were struggling. And so they were selling anything they could sell, any line they could sell, and doing whatever they could to get somebody to pay them something for any bit of advice, because they had hard money debt to pay. All right. Now, I'm not saying that it's the devil. I'm not saying that at all. I know many people who've made it work, but that's not what this group is about. All right. And so what we are going to talk about today is we're going to talk about foreclosure investing. And what I want to do, just to level the playing field, I want to start with a little bit of a foundation. Okay. Like I said earlier, there's many ways to profit from real estate. You can profit from the property itself. So that's like, you have the property, you own the property, or you control the property. Maybe you don't own it, but maybe you control it. And you get the cash flow, you get the appreciation from the value going up. If it does, you get a lot of benefits from owning or controlling the property itself. Okay. Another way is in having industries that are related to the investing. So maybe you are a realtor, a broker, a property manager. I actually really do like property management once I learned the tools. And in fact, you know what? Let me tell you something. I should have added this in, but I totally forgot. Next week, I am going as an alumni student to J. Scott Shields Commercial Academy. Now, This is the guy who, I think it was in 2007, I went to his commercial academy, and he sent us home with all these manuals and DVDs and CDs. And I mean, the property management manual was like this big, y'all. And I took that thing home, but it gave me it was step by step, line upon line, precept upon precept. It gave me the confidence that I needed to go out there and get deals done, because I had all the checklists right there. Okay. Another really good class is Mr. Landlords. So if I love his the way he approaches his tenants. So for me and my business, I have combined both philosophies, right? But he is going to be Scott Shield is going to be in Dallas next week, and if you are interested in coming, I want you to reach out to me, and we'll see if we can get you a good deal on a ticket. All right. I know that some people who are in here already got free tickets through being a member of my group, but if you're not a member of my group but you're still interested in attending, let's make sure we can get that to happen, because it really was one of the best real estate classes I ever took. All right. So you can be a property manager. Maybe you've got a knack for a trade, and you can make money by catering to investors. When an investor gets a good team, they like to stick with that team, and it's really hard to stick with that team because everybody grows and people outgrow the investor. But if you can come to a good relationship, you will have all the business you need. Then there are the extra touches we talked about, like staging and photography and things like that. Things that help people sell the house, help people rent the house. And then we also talked about ancillary services a little bit, like vending machines, ATMs, and things like that. And so those are all different ways that you can profit from real estate. So as you look at that list of stuff, there's ways that almost anybody can profit. Like everybody can find themselves in there. And so that's one of the reasons I really like real estate. And I got to tell you, as a financial planner, I've had so many people come to me that have been burned by other things because they were so set on trying to make something work for them that worked for their friend, but they didn't take their own unique personality into account. And so for me, I want you to take your personality account, and I want to help you establish a business that's actually going to work for you, something that's going to energize you. And when you're working with your clients or you're delivering your service, like you just get a lift and a pick me up, and then you get that check and you're like, oh, wow, I got paid to do this. Like that's what I want for you. Right. All right. So real estate is one of those ways that people can do it. And I've seen people win with real estate in the various different ways over and over and over again. Okay. The biggest thing about real estate is you got to follow the number one rule of real estate investing. So before I do this, who's been on these classes before? Who knows what the number one rule? Go ahead and drop it in the comments for me. And if you're watching this after the fact, you can drop it in the comments too and just kind of play along. But who knows what the number one rule of real estate investing is? I say this all the time because it's one of those things that I really wish I would have internalized beforehand. See, when I bought real estate the first time, because the real estate market was just climbing, it was going up and up and up. Like you could buy a property today, do no work to it, put it on the market tomorrow for $50,000 more than it was. This is when we were in Maryland at the time. Put it on the market for $50,000 more. Don't even do anything to it, and it would sell. Like that. Okay. That's the environment that I started investing in. So talk about a skewed expectation of what's going to happen, right? Like I totally, I totally misunderstood how the market and real estate and the cycles and all that work, right? All right. I don't have anybody dropping any comments on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what the number one rule is. But so I heard Sherman Ragland tell us about the number one rule of real estate investing, but I didn't follow it. So let me tell you what the number one rule of real estate investing is. You make your money when you buy. Now I'm going to say that again. You make your money when you buy. And one more time for the saints in the back, you make your money when you buy. It's so important to make sure that when you are investing in real estate that you have calculated out what you're doing and you make your money when you buy, not buy it at retail and then hope that it will appreciate or hope that it will work. Okay. So when I talk about making your money when you buy, a property at 70 to 80% cost of value is going to make you money, whether you keep it or another investor buys it. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about why this matters in a second, because some of you are like, well, we're here for foreclosure consulting. What does this have to do with foreclosure consulting? I promise you I'm going to get there and explain it in more detail. But just to put that little thought at rest, the reason that this is important is because now is because if you're going to be a foreclosure consultant, one of the things that you're going to have to do is understand what other investors want, because a lot of times people can't afford to buy that house. And so you're going to pass that house to an investor who can make the foreclosure go away, right? So you got to understand how investors buy properties. And the way I'm going to teach you to do it is to find properties at 70 to 80% cost of value. It'll always make you money, okay? And so some of you have seen this slide before. Let me make sure. Oh, no, you haven't, because I didn't put it back up. All right. Some of you have seen this slide before. There are all kinds of different ways to make more money. And, one of the things that Sherman taught us when I went to that very first little investor meeting that I used to go to is that some investors have more time than money, and some investors have more money than time. And so when you have more time than money, you can make money by meeting the needs of those investors who have more money than time. And foreclosure investing kind of falls into that, but there's a new realm that I'm going to be talking about today, is not just buying the foreclosures, but being a foreclosure consultant, okay? Some people in some states will start their foreclosure consulting purchases by being a foreclosure consultant. But in some states, you're not allowed to do that. And that's where this comes in, okay? So what I teach people is, if you're trying to get somewhere, stay over here on the left side of the thing where you are doing the activities that help investors that have more money than they have free time, and those investors will pay you. And so before I dig into what those are, I want to remind you, this is our fundraiser. So, come on out and help us. All right. Let me take that off so you can see that there. You can either use the links that I'm scrolling at the bottom, which is the PayPal or the Cash App, the Queen of Cash Flow, right? Or you can use this bit.ly/lovehelping, and that will take you to a Square store link. Okay. So where do we get started? Where do we get started in all those things? I just said, let me go back to that slide. I just said that if you have issues, if you don't have a lot of money, you need to stay over on the side of the people who have more time than money, right? Well, here's where foreclosure consulting falls in, because I always recommend people start with bird dogging and wholesaling. And foreclosure consulting is basically doing the same thing with the added step of helping people try to keep their home. Okay. And so, this is an interesting thing. If you've never heard the terms bird dogging and wholesaling before, a bird dog finds properties. So basically they're out driving around. They see a house that's overgrown. They take down the address. They pass that to an investor. If the investor is honorable and integrous, and they buy the property after receiving it from the bird dog usually will earn like $500, $1,000, maybe even up to 1% of the purchase price of the property. Okay. Wholesaling takes this up a notch. You're still finding a property for another investor to buy, but as a wholesaler, you're actually negotiating the contract. And what you're giving to the investor is not just, hey, here's an address of a property that somebody might be willing to sell you at a discount, but now you are bringing the contract where the seller says, yes, absolutely, I will sell this at a discount. Here's what I'm going to sell it for. In wholesaling deals, you typically earn anywhere from 5 to 10% of the purchase price. So in high level areas, you could really make a lot of bank with this strategy. And like I said earlier, foreclosure consultant is basically doing the same thing, but now you are adding the step of helping people try to keep their home. But you got to know your state laws on this, because one of the reasons that foreclosure consulting has really become an issue in the last 10 or so years is because of all the predatory practices that went along with trying to help people stay in their homes. Basically, what was happening was people would advertise, I'm a foreclosure consultant. You can stay in your home. I'll help you, don't lose your house. They were advertising those things, but they knew fair, full, and well that most of the people that approached them weren't going to get their house to stay. I didn't say that right. Let me re-say what I just said. The investors who were advertising about foreclosures knew that 99 times out of 100, that person was going to lose that house. And what they were doing was a manipulative strategy of, come here, let me help you. I'm going to help you do this house. It's going to be okay. Come on, it's going to be all right. And then when that doesn't work out, boom, I'm taking the house and I'm kicking you out. Despite all the promises that I made about stay in your house, don't lose your home, as soon as that ink dried on the quit claim deed, boom, those people were filing to get rid of those homeowners. Okay. So a lot of states have enacted laws to prevent that kind of treatment, that kind of predatory behavior. And so that's where the term foreclosure consultant really began to rise. Now, reputable and honorable foreclosure investors were already kind of doing this. This isn't a new thing, right? But because a lot of states start implementing these laws, it's become more important than ever. And speaking of more important than ever, let me just explain why I want you to understand about foreclosure consulting now. The reason I want you to understand about foreclosure consulting now is because COVID-19 has resulted in a record number of loan forbearances, which is basically like pushing pause on your mortgage payments. So if you were affected by COVID, or if you just wanted to give yourself some breathing room and put some money into savings, the banks were actually very aggressive about pushing the forbearances on people. They basically paused your payments. Sounds great, right? Like helping the people out, right? Like that sounds like a great thing to do. Unfortunately, with a loan forbearance is not the same as wiping away the payments. You're not modifying the loan to add the payments to the end. You're just pushing pause. So when you're done pushing pause, you know, what's a way to look at this? It's almost like a live stream. Have you ever pushed pause on a live stream? And you can get away with that for a minute or two, but if you walk away for 3 or 4 hours and you come back, when you come back, it's already jumped forward to where it is, right? Like the loan forbearance is kind of like the live stream. You can push pause on that for a week or 2 or 3 or 4, and then get back and paying your stuff. Maybe not 4, but get back to paying your stuff. But if you push pause for 6 months, when you're done with that 6 months, you got to pay that bank all that money. And that's why they're predicting some issues, because a lot of people who took the forbearances aren't going to have the cash in order to actually pay it all in full. Now, I'm going to tell you a little experiment I did, and I kind of wrestled with it. But as a financial planner, sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you go through it yourself, right? Like when I was in the military, I was a scientist in the military, and our scientific agency was rolled under the Air Combat Command, and they wanted to start deploying all of us, okay? And so they came up with this whole thing of the combat scientists and the combat engineers, whatever. And I had to get an organization of 300 Air Force people that very rarely, if ever, went out of the country. I had to get these folks prepared in order to go overseas. Well, I had never deployed anywhere. I had never dragged bags anywhere. So I volunteered to go overseas and do the whole shebang. And I took a position that was well beneath me as far as rank, but it was one that would let me do everything, and it was one that I knew I could do, right? So like I didn't want to mess up the mission, and I also didn't want to hit somebody else with it, because people that we could have hit with it, they really weren't ready to deploy. And so I didn't have any kids, so I was like, and I needed to learn, so I went and did that. So I did the same thing. And that was an eye-opening experience. Like if you've never done something and you're in charge of it, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? And so when it came to these loan forbearances, and the bank was being very aggressive, calling all the time about our mortgage, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to fill out the paperwork and walk through this, because I've done it with other people and I've seen how difficult it is to get it approved, but these guys are being aggressive. Let me just see how this works. And sure enough, I didn't even have to hardly do anything. And so I just took that money, I banked it, as savings, so that because I knew I was going to have to pay it back, right? Like people don't realize that, but I already knew, being a financial planner, that I was going to have to pay it back. And so I just took it. And then when the time ran out, they said, well, are you still impacted by COVID? Well, yeah, I'm still impacted by COVID because I was retiring, and I couldn't, you couldn't get a job, right? Like, you couldn't get a job. Now, I mean, I don't really want a job, but I couldn't get one if I wanted one, right? And so I said, well, yes, there's still impacts, and some of my tenants were impacted by COVID, so that impacted my income, right? Like, that's the only thing they wanted. So I was in integrity. I always want to walk in integrity. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. When I felt like all of my tenants had their life back together and we were good to go, and when I felt like I was ready to cancel this program, let me tell you, that bank did not want to cancel the program. They did everything in their power to keep me from paying it off. And I'm like, I have the money in a savings account. Let me just pay this thing off and get caught up and get back to normal with my mortgage, right? They were really, really pushing the extensions. And I'm going to tell you today, if you're on today, I want you to ask yourself why the banks have been pushing these extensions and why the banks have continued to kind of coddle people along. They don't want you to pay it off. You got to ask yourself, why is this? What is coming down the pike that these banks are hoping will happen? If you've never thought about it before, I want you to think about something the next time you go downtown. I want you to go downtown and look at which buildings are the tallest buildings. For the most part, in most cities, the tallest buildings you're going to find are going to be the banks. So the banks know a thing or two about how money works. Okay. And so when I see in this experience that they are pushing people to forbearances, they're not letting you renegotiate and modify the loans, but then they're making it very difficult for you to get caught up. I just got to sit back and say, somebody knows what they are doing. Predictions say that foreclosures are going to be at a record high as people cannot pay in full after their forbearance period ends. So that's why now is the time for everybody in the Building Wealth Together family, in our DART real estate investing family, to really get comfortable with these concepts, because this is going to represent a win-win-win income stream for you. Let me say this again. In a year or two, they are predicting. Now, we don't really know. Now, come on, let's be real. If we all knew what the market was going to do, we'd all be rich, right? And so we don't. But we can look at the signs. And what the experts are saying is that the signs point to a correction in the real estate prices that are currently just rising like crazy. And that the signs are also pointing to an onslaught of foreclosures because of all these forbearances and people struggling through COVID. Okay. When that happens, it was supposed to happen this year. I guess it didn't. It may happen next year, maybe 2023. When that happens, somebody is going to make money taking advantage of all these people. And what I want you to do is I want you to put yourself in a position to make money helping them. Somebody's going to make money one way or another. It might as well be you who's going to walk in integrity. Somebody's going to make money. It might as well be you who have a genuine heart to help people. Somebody's going to make money off of all these foreclosures. It might as well be you who's going to do what you can to ensure a win-win-win situation. That's one of the things that kept me for a long time. I really had a hard time with selling and selling what I offer and really kind of forcing people to make a decision. And then I realized, as when I was a realtor, so I was a realtor for 10 years. One of the things I realized is if I didn't get that client to commit, knowing that I offered the best win-win situation for them, and that my commission was going to be higher, but it was going to be worth it. We were going to get that house sold faster. We were going to get it sold with a minimum amount of hassle for that homeowner. I mean, let me tell you, if you've never worked with a good realtor, all the work that goes on behind the scenes, they are worth their weight in gold. That commission is not just a free paycheck. But I knew if I didn't get that person to sign, they were going to sign with some sleazeball who just wanted to stick a sign in the yard and maybe do an open house every once in a while. And that person wasn't going to get their house sold fast. And that person wasn't going to get their house sold with a minimal amount of headaches. And so then I had to shift my mindset. And what I'm asking some of you to do today is to shift your mindset. So I'm feeling my throat getting a little scratchy. I'm gonna take a little sip of tea, my rose tea. Y'all know I love this rose tea. It's my new favorite tea. I'm gonna take a little sip of this, but I want you to think about this for a second. Think about all the people who are gonna be hurt in this foreclosure when others swoop in like vultures to take their houses from them, when they swoop in like vultures to take advantage of them, to charge them high fees that they don't need to pay. Why shouldn't they pay you a little bit to help them through this and make a win-win-win? My goal with this training today is to put you in a position, or someone you love in a position, after you say like, wow, I know who needs this, and you're going to forward it out to 2 or 3 friends. My goal with this class today is to help you get in position to be that change agent for someone's life, to be that breath of fresh air, to really be that comfort during the storm, to be that help. You know, we talk about how the Lord will send help, and we talk about how the Lord is a very present help. Well, why can't you be that help? Why can't the Lord use you to be that help for somebody? The trouble is coming, and we're in a position to do something about it. So now what I want to do is I want to shift to talking about what foreclosures and foreclosure consulting is, okay? And so what foreclosure consulting is, well, no, let me back up. The whole foreclosure process is the process of rectifying the I'm sorry, y'all. I just looked down at Clubhouse and realized somehow I no wonder I have nobody. I looked down and saw nobody was on there, and then I saw that I was muted. So I don't know how long I've been muted, but I imagine that's why nobody's stayed on. Okay. If you can hear me, let me know it in the comments. I think you can, because we've had some comments, but let me restart that, okay? The process of foreclosure is the process that helps fix the problem of the lender not getting paid. So if the lender is not getting paid, they have the legal right to force the sale of that asset. In this case that we're talking about, it's a house that somebody lives in, somebody's home. They're not paying their mortgage. The lender is tired of losing money. They want their money back. Most of the time they actually want their money back, not the house, okay? But they'll take the house because these people aren't paying the money, all right? And so the whole process of foreclosure is really the process of making that lender whole, getting them their money back, getting them where they need to be. And so there's 3 phases, and we're going to talk about these on the next 3 slides. There's 3 phases that you can make money with foreclosures by helping people through foreclosures, or helping the entity at foreclosures, okay? And that is, the first phase is distressed sellers, and people call this pre-foreclosure because the foreclosure sale hasn't happened yet. Then you have the actual foreclosure auction, and that's where I put cash is king. You'll find out about that in a second. And then you have what's called real estate owned, and that's where the lender has bought the property, and now if you want to buy it, you got to buy it from the lender, okay? There are avenues where each one of these makes sense. So let's go ahead and switch to the next couple of slides where I'll explain all of these in a little bit more detail. Let me roll that back, because I'm not going to explain them in a little more detail. Okay, that's going to be the next slide. I do have a disclaimer here. I want you to understand that foreclosure consulting can be very, very lucrative. But like I said earlier, there are a lot of predatory behaviors that have happened with foreclosures. And so because of that, many states have enacted laws to protect the consumer, okay? And so what I started off in real estate investing doing was being a foreclosure consultant. Like I said before, it's kind of like a wholesaler, but with a focus on foreclosures specifically. So all of my advertisements were about foreclosures. All of my marketing, all of my conversations, everything that I did was about foreclosures. I was what they needed in the state of Maryland, a legal distance between the investor and homeowner. in the state of Maryland in 2007, what they did was they came out with these laws that said if you advertise anything about foreclosures and helping people stay in their homes and helping them get their money together, anything related to that, you legally could not buy the house. And so what it did inadvertently was it created like a whole new industry. In fact, I was the founding treasurer for the Maryland Association of Professional Foreclosure Consultants, because somebody who was a visionary, and I don't know if he'd want me to name him now, but somebody who was a visionary said, "Hey, you can't buy the house. There's a new industry that we can make out of this." And they created a whole new industry and created a certification program and everything. It was phenomenal, y'all. I was so excited to be a part of it. But then military moved me away, and then over time things have normalized, and so I don't think that organization is in existence anymore. But it was a fun time helping people, and really helping people and getting paid to help people. Like, that's what I like, right? Like, getting paid to help people. Like, I should make that website, get paid to help people. Somebody probably already has that. All right. And so what I did was foreclosure consulting. And so what I'm going to give you an overview of today, that's what I did. And if you're interested in, now, truth in advertising, I have not built this out yet. I'm gauging the interest levels. If you're interested, go out and fill out my Ask JJC form. Make sure you do HTTP, because I don't know why the S isn't working. I got to troubleshoot that, but it's not working today. But you can go ahead and go out there and you can let me know that you're interested. And then once I know that I have enough interest, then we can do the class. If I don't get enough interest, then the people who said they were interested will do a special call. It may not be a full out class, but it'll at least be a special call. I will give you something. All right. So go ahead and fill that out. So that's my disclaimer, and that's my opportunity to learn more. Let me tell you how to walk through each of these phases. Okay. The first phase is called pre-foreclosure. This is also called distressed sellers. So if you do a search on Bigger Pockets or anything, oh man, I forgot to put this on my Bigger Pockets blog. I have that blog and I keep forgetting to use it. Oh Lord have mercy. All right, let me start that over again. All right, the first phase is pre-foreclosure, and that's where you have distressed sellers. So if you go out there and do a search, Bigger Pockets or just Google or any of those investor websites, you'll find that they have the terminology distressed sellers or pre-foreclosures. And this is where the homeowner's late. They're not paying their bills. Depending on the state, they could be 3 months behind, 10 months behind, 2 years behind. It really depends on the state, the county, parish, whatever the jurisdiction is, okay? And so when somebody's late, some banks will let them get help trying to get their financial life together. And by let them get help, what I mean is some banks will allow you to get the authorization to talk with the bank on behalf of the homeowners. Some make it really difficult, okay? But some will let you work with them. And so what a foreclosure consultant does is you come in and you look at where they're sitting, you look at their financial standing, you look at the situation they're in, you look at their ability to get caught up, and you look at their ability to generate more money, and then you help craft a plan. Depending on what the bank is allowed, you can help them craft a plan. And there's a missing bullet in the slide. So for those of you who are just looking at the slide view later, there's a missing bullet here that should say that sometimes the banks will let them modify the loan or do a forbearance. Now, I spoke in the beginning, not at the beginning, but I spoke a few minutes ago about forbearances. So let me talk a little bit about loan modifications. What the loan modification is you are now changing the terms of the loan. The most common modification that a bank will allow in this kind of situation is taking the missed payments and adding them to the end of the loan. So you missed 3 months of payments. The bank knows you can't come up with those payments. And so what the bank does is they say, okay, we're going to take those 3 missed payments, and instead of paying the loan off in May of 2036, now you're going to pay it off in September of 2036 or whatever it is. And there's usually going to be a penalty for that, some fees or something like that. And they'll tack that in or roll it in. Actually, I take that back. That is not the most common. I said that was the most common, and it's not. That's actually not very common. What's more common is to restructure the loan, to take the fees and everything and then recalculate a whole new loan. And the reason banks like to do that is because, if you just add the payments to the end, but the person's been paying for 10 years, well, the bank is not making as much interest as they would if they redid a whole new loan and you started paying on a whole new 30-year loan. Okay. Or a whole new 15-year loan or whatever it's going to be. So those are two very common loan modifications that the bank might be willing to work with. But if the bank can't work with the people, and the people can't do something on their own, working with you and working with the bank to stay in their home, they're not going to be able to stay in their home. They're going to have to leave the home. This is where the predatory part comes in, because most of the people who are facing these foreclosure issues can't stay in their home. Okay. That's why they had all the predatory behavior. So if they can't stay in their home, and if the numbers work that an investor can profit, now you can work with an investor to take the property off their hands. Okay. This is why I was saying earlier that you got to follow the number one rule of real estate investing, which was to make your money when you buy. Okay. You make your money when you buy, and to make the money when you buy, you're acquiring the property at no more than 70 to 80%. So if you're working with a homeowner that can't stay in their home, but you see they have enough equity in the home to be able to offer that home to an investor at 80% of the value, now you have solved that homeowner's problem. No, they can't stay in their house. No, they can't stay in their house. Yes, they're going to have to move, but you have gotten rid of the foreclosure that will hamstring their future. You see what I'm saying? And now what you've also done is you've taken that and you've given a good, juicy deal to an investor. This is a win-win-win. Okay. And so when we do that, in order for us to effectively do that, we have to understand how investors work and what they're looking for. All right. And so that's why I spent some time in the beginning really covering the whole structure of what makes a good deal. Now, what I'm going to do in the Foreclosure Consulting 102 class, okay, what I'm going to do in the Foreclosure Consulting 102 class is we're actually going to spend the first couple of lessons walking through as if you were the investor who was going to buy this property. Because in order for you to really help solve that homeowner's problem of, I can't pay these bills, I can't keep this house, I don't want a foreclosure on my record, I don't want to lose my security clearance, I don't want to lose my job, I don't want to ruin my credit. It's already kind of tanked, but a foreclosure lasts a lot longer than 3 missed payments, right? So in order for you to do that and get it to investor, you have to understand what the investor wants. And so that's why in the advanced class, like, it's basically the wholesaling and driving for dollars 101 rolled into a much longer class. Okay. And so I'm very excited about that. And it's really going to help a lot of people to help a lot of people. But if you can get an investor, if the numbers work, and you get an investor to take the property off their hands, then now you have prevented the foreclosure. But if the numbers don't work, or if you don't have a good network of investors to get somebody with cash who can swoop in and make the property whole, then the next phase is going to be at the auction. That property will go to auction. So now, before I talk about the auction, let me talk about some of the ways that investors can help people. One of the most common ways, of course, is to come in, make that loan current, and then take ownership of the property. Sometimes the investor will actually try to renegotiate with the homeowner, either by changing the terms of the loan that they were already paying because it's no longer in existence because the investors bought the house now, or by renting the property back to the homeowner. Okay. So you could, as an investor, in fact, I should probably add that slide next time. So as an investor, you could take the house, just take it, get them out of there, put somebody else in. Kind of iffy about that. But if we stop and think about it from a business perspective, if they weren't paying their mortgage, they're probably not going to pay your rent. Okay. So I mean, we're not trying to run a charity here. Okay. We make money in business so we can give to charities. We make money in business so we can support our favorite charities, but we are not running a business to be a charity. Got it? All right. So with that, another thing that they can do is they can resell the house back to the owner. Okay. And depending on the jurisdiction you live in, this can be a very cost-effective thing. So let's say they couldn't pay $1,000 a month. They got a foreclosure. This investor swoops in, makes it current, buys the house from them, and because that person couldn't pay $1,000 a month, the investor knows, well, I'm not going to charge them $1,000 a month in mortgage. We're going to structure a mortgage, maybe make it longer. We're going to structure a mortgage where they only have to pay me $500 a month. Maybe they only have to pay me $600 a month. Okay. And now that person has some breathing room in their life and they can afford it. I was working with one client 2 years ago who had a good job, but then she got sick and she was now on disability. So she's bringing home $740 a month. That was all she could bring in. She's not going to be able to afford a $1,500 mortgage. Right. And so, if you've been paying on a property for 15 years, and you can't afford your mortgage, well, this investor can come in, buy the property, get the foreclosure off your record, resell it back to you, extend your loan back out, sure, because they want to get paid too, right? Extend your loan back out, and now they can stay in their home. And you, as the foreclosure foreclosure consultant, you have been the middleman between these two, and of course the investor is going to compensate you for that. Okay. And then another way is just to rent it back out to the same tenant. But again, if they didn't pay their mortgage, they're probably not going to pay your rent. So you have to tread carefully on all of these options, right? If an investor can't swoop in and buy it, or if the person who's facing foreclosure cannot get enough friends together to help get that payment made, then the property is going to eventually go to foreclosure sale, foreclosure auction. Okay. And so in this case, this is where the property is sold. And a lot of times it happens at a predetermined place like the courthouse. And there's usually a schedule like every second Tuesday or every third Wednesday or something like that, where they'll go through and they'll sell all the properties. Once the property is sold at the auction, there are different things that get paid in an order that's predetermined by that jurisdiction. So generally speaking, if there are any taxes that are owed, either to the federally or to the state or to the parish or to the county, those are going to get paid first, right? Typically, this is not a one size fits all, but this is just a general example, right? Then after that, the mortgages, any mortgages. So, maybe, making up an example on the fly here. Maybe somebody's been in their house for 20 years. It's a $100,000 house. They only owe $20,000 or $30,000 on it. They go to the auction. It sells for $50,000. The banks, and the taxes were caught up because the bank had been paying them as part of the mortgage. Okay, so this is the scenario. The bank's happy because they're now got their $30,000, and then there's still more left over. Well, if there's more left over, then they can go off to pay any other notes that are against the property or any construction liens that are against the property. Like, they can work their way down the list, and people can get paid. Part of what happens in a lot of times the foreclosure process, though, is you don't have that kind of spread. Because, come on, think about it. If they could sell the house for that much, often they would, right? And so what happens is, if you've got some of these later liens, you may get wiped. All right, you may not get your money. By the time the money's gone, it hasn't trickled any down to you. All right, and so that's something to be aware of. But that's what happens at the foreclosure sale. At the foreclosure sale, you generally have to pay for it that day. Some jurisdictions it's like by 2:00. Some will tell you by 8:00 the next morning, but most of them it's that day. So cash is king. Being able to get that cashier's check or have that cash in hand. And if you're like me and you do your real estate investing through a self-directed IRA, which I can't touch yet. Thankfully, I'm not, I don't want to say that the wrong way. I'm not old enough yet. I'm older than I look, but I'm not that old yet to be able to touch my IRA. But if you do it through your self-directed IRA, there are tips and tricks, because you can't just get the money that quick, but you can cut different checks of different values, and you can bid up to that value. And if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you don't, So there's some different tips and tricks we can talk about later if that's the situation that you find yourself in. Okay. So you want to have cash, you want to have quick access to money. Okay. One thing that I have noticed at the foreclosure sales that I have gone to is that sometimes you will get in this bidding war between the banker and some investor or family member who just wants to run it up or something like that. And they just want to get it. Okay. So the banker, a lot of times, will come to these sales and they will bid up to whatever is owed to them. Because what they don't want is for you to as an investor, or somebody else as an investor, to come in and pay $10,000 for this house when the bank has a mortgage against the house and they still need their other 60,000, right? Like there's a $60,000 mortgage against the house, but the bids are only going up to 10. Well, if the bank accepts that, then they only get in 10. Well, of course they want more than that. So what they'll do is, depending on the situation, a lot of times they will bid up to the price of what they owe. And then now that becomes their property. Okay. And that's where we get the term real estate owned. Okay. This is when the bank has bought the property back. It's now, they've won it at the auction, they've bought it at the auction. It's now real estate owned by the bank. So if you do a search online and you look for the descriptions and you see REO, then you know that that is a property that went through the foreclosure process. There wasn't enough juice in it to fix it when it was owned by the homeowner. There wasn't enough juice in it for some investor to buy it at the auction, and now the bank owns it. Okay. And so in that situation, what you find is, in that situation, now you're buying it from the bank. And you'll know a lot of these because when you see them in the description, they're usually as is. They have a lot of particular paperwork that's required, and often a short sale will be required because it's most likely more is owed on the property than it's actually worth. Now, I have a whole class on short sales. I don't have it at my time. I don't have my command the time to go into all of that right now because short sales is a very involved process. But if you are a detail-oriented person and you can follow a checklist, then oh my goodness, you want to learn how to do short sales because that is a very lucrative process. It's not for me because I don't like all those details and the check. I like a good checklist. Now, don't get me wrong. I like a good checklist. That's why I like Scott Shields' property management checklist that he gave me. I like read a step, do a step, get a banana, man. I can do that all day long. But there were so many details and intricacies that go into short sales. I think I tried to do one and I said, this is for the birds. I'm going to let the people who are good at this make that money. You got to know what works for you, you know? And so there's different ways to do that. But that's not for this class here today. All right. So I've kind of given you an overview of the three phases of a foreclosure. So I've given you that overview of the three phases of the foreclosure. And now what I want to talk to you about is how you profit from helping. Now, I kind of alluded to this all the way through, right? So we kind of talked a little bit about this, but just so you've got it on one slide, okay? In the pre-foreclosure stage, there are different ways to profit. You can work with the homeowner to do a loan mod or forbearance, or you can even help them get their money straight so they get caught up. In this situation, the homeowner pays you for your services. You might be able to find local helping agencies to sponsor your fee, although I've not really had that happen for me yet, but it's something that you could do. I've heard other investors have done that, okay? In the pre-foreclosure stage, in some states, you can actually still buy the property, even if you presented yourself as a foreclosure consultant to try to help them stay in the property, okay? In a growing number of other states, the investor who ultimately buys the property will have to be the one that pays you because if you advertise as a foreclosure consultant, you can't buy the property. Okay. It's a growing number of states that are enacting these kinds of laws. But if you're in a state where those kinds of laws are in place, then that investor pays you at closing. They pay your consultant. I'm so sorry, y'all. I must be tired. They pay your foreclosure consulting fee at closing. Okay. Another way to profit is, of course, show up at auction. If you've done your research and you're able to get that property at a discount, well, then now you're going to be able to actually profit at the auction. Now, this doesn't happen as often as the TV might make you think, because I want you to remember how to make sure you're going to profit from a property, okay? And it's that rule of real estate investing. A property at 70 to 80% cost to value is going to make you money because you can always sell that kind of a property super quick, okay? If you've got 70 to 80% of equity, if you've got 70 to 80% of equity, then you are able to sell that property very quick, okay? And so what I want you to do is to know that you have to do your research, even as a foreclosure consultant, so that you know what the margins are and you know what the investors are looking for. And you can, oops, I did something with my screen there. Hold on. I was trying to go back after that. Let's go back. So you've got to be able to, hold on, let me get there. There we go. Okay, how you profit from helping. Okay, so let me say that again. This is why you've got to understand what the investors are looking for so that you can make sure that you're going to be able to get paid. Okay. Now, at the auction, you might be able to profit by buying the property. Okay. Somebody's going to buy that property. And if the numbers work, it might as well be you. But again, you want to make sure you've done your research. I've been at the auction where somebody was being mentored and their mentor let them bid twice the value of that property. And when I leaned over to him, because we knew each other, I leaned over to him and I said, well, here's what I would have paid. And he showed me his notes. His notes were the same as mine. We both had the same mindset, but he was willing to let his mentee overpay for a property because she didn't really know what she was doing and he didn't want to be the one to tell her stop. And when I asked her later, I said, well, it seemed like you were really enjoying the process. She was like, oh, I got really caught up in it. This is not an emotional thing. Real estate is not an emotional thing. We're not getting caught up in the emotions of it. We are doing this as a business. All right. Now we can get caught up in the emotion of cashing that check and enjoying that check and doing good in the community and doing good in the world with that check. But we're not going to get caught up in the emotions of doing business. It's business. All right. So that's that's how you can profit at the second stage, which is the auction. Okay. The third stage, you're also buying the property, but now you're working the process. Okay. So in this case, in the third stage, the bank did not get enough bids at the auction. So the bank bought it so they wouldn't lose everything. Right. And now they're trying to sell it. A lot of times you can work that short sale process. And this is how you can end up buying that property. Okay. And so, these are different ways to profit at all stages of the real estate. Oh goodness. These are ways that you can profit at all stages of the foreclosure process. Okay. So I want you to understand this is a very, very intricate process, but it is a process anybody can learn. And anybody who has the ability to watch me and do a little bit of Google research, anybody who can do that, you can make this work. Okay. And so a couple things that I want to do before we go into our questions and answers. I like to always make two promises. And, I always like to promise I'm going to teach you something in the class that you can put into practice tonight. You can take what I just taught you and go out tonight and start researching how foreclosures work in your neighborhood, in your county or parish, or even in your state. You can go find people. You go down to, that should say courthouse instead of go down to the county, but you can go down to the courthouse or the land records. You can find people who are in foreclosure because they publish the list, and you can start approaching those people and building your consultant muscle so that you can be ready when the floodgates of all these foreclosures open, whenever that happens. They're predicting it to happen in 2022. It may be even later, but whenever it happens, you can be ready. And that's why I'm going to give you an opportunity to dig deeper. The Foreclosure Consulting 102 class is going to be coming soon. Maybe I'll call it 202 because that feels more swanky. I don't know yet. But that class is going to give you the ability to dig deeper with the scripts and the role play. So we're also going to cover how you find the homeowners and how you find investors. Because if you can't help the homeowner stay in that house, you've got to find a way to get investors who can swoop in quickly. So you got to know how to find these investors. You got to know how to vet them. You got to know how to make sure that these people are the real deal, and that when they say they're going to close in a week, they really do close in a week, so that this person who's counting on you can avoid foreclosure. These people who are in foreclosure, I've never had anybody come talk to me a month out. It's always been a week or two or three. It's always been a week at max, or a couple of days. Okay. So these are things that happen very quick, and you don't want to wait until that onslaught to be able to get comfortable with these things. You want to work on that now, so that when there's a lot of deals out there, you're comfortable, and you're making it happen. All right. So one thing I want to remind you before we go into our questions today is charity benefit. All of my free real estate classes, I'm raising money through those classes for Global Youth Initiative. And I've been running the Global Youth Initiative of Northwest Louisiana for the last 4 years. And this year we're going to launch Global Youth Initiative of Erath County. Okay. And so I'm very excited about that. But you know what? In order to bless these kids, it takes money, honey. So I want you to help me help them by giving us a donation of any size, $1, $5, $10, $100, right? $10,000. I'll take it and do good in this community for these kids in these two communities that I love dearly. All right. And so with that, I think we are about done for the evening. Does anybody have any questions? I am going to hang out for about a minute or two to see if any questions show up in the comments. And I'm also going to check the form at askjjc.com. Now make sure, I think I told you guys, hold on. Did I put it in there? Let me go back to my banners. Did I put that in there? Nope, I didn't put it in the banners. It's askjjc.com, but don't do HTTPS, just do HTTP, because for some reason it's not, the secure part's not working today. But you can just ask a question. It's not like I'm taking your money or anything. So you can do that. I'm going to check real quick to see if we have any questions that came in there. Otherwise, I'm going to close out and go spend some time with Mr. Man before he needs to go to bed so he can do a good job of teaching y'all his babies tomorrow. All right. Let's see. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any questions. And that's cool. Maybe I did an excellent job of covering everything, right? I like to look at the positive side of it. All right, y'all. Well, I want to thank you for being on the line with me today. If you've enjoyed this, I encourage you to go to dartrei.com. Go to dartrei.com. That's going to take you to my portal page where we are capturing all of these recordings. And I know that in this last year, with me moving and the wonky internet out here in the middle of Erath County, Texas, I know that some of the recordings haven't been where I want them to be. So what I did was I put all of last year's and 2019's recordings in there so that you have all the gaps covered in your real estate investment education. I want to thank you, all of you who've been on the line on the various channels that we're broadcasting. I really appreciate you. Y'all take care and be blessed.